Hello and welcome to Honest Faith Conversations. As always, I am your co-host, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias. And today let's talk about Netflix's Ozark.
We are only going to be talking about the first part of this series, episodes 1 through 6, because that's how far we've been able to watch at the moment. So,
but that's a good stopping point because it's halfway through because there's 12 episodes.
There's 10 episodes.
I mean, that's a little over halfway through because there's 10 episodes.
So we're going to do this in part 1, and so this will be a little bit different of a format. So if some of our thoughts on the show so far kind of go astray, that's kind of why, is because we have not watched the entire show yet.
Yep.
And so we're going to just talk about what we know so far in the series. And obviously, there will be spoilers if you haven't seen any of the series so far. If you're much farther behind than we are, then go watch the show first, and then listen to this show and the one next week, which will be part 2.
Yay!
And so, anyway, we're going to be doing a review instead of a summary because
we can't really
summarize it yet.
Yeah, since we haven't actually watched the whole thing.
Yeah, so far, I find it to be rather engaging, almost on kind of the same morbid curiosity that I had with Breaking Bad. It really kind of just hooks you in and wants you kind of to cheer for the protagonist / antagonist kind of guy. So, I mean, it's in that vein of morbid curiosity kind of thing. So
yeah, I would say that if you enjoy watching good people or people who are perceived to be good people turn bad, this is going to be a good show for you to watch. It's similar in that, like with Breaking Bad.
And I know that Michael Bateman, is that his name?
No.
The main actor.
It is Bateman, but I can't remember.
Jason Bateman.
Jason,
that's what his name
yeah.
is. Jason Bateman. That he is. He's actually doing very well in this,
and
I know
he directed it too.
Yeah, he's had a few flops with some of his more comedic roles, which he's known for, but because Arrested Development was so big, the problem was that he played the straight man in Arrested Development, and so every time he attempted comedy after that, everybody kind of saw, kind of the straight man character in those. And
and it's just like how a lot of people, like, for example, like The Office is so iconic. So anytime they see any of those any of those actors who played those characters in The Office, automatically they think like, oh look, there's Jim. Oh look, there's Stanley. Oh look, so it's hard to separate if you are in such a successful show.
And yeah, so he did very well he's doing very well without disguising his appearance. Like Steve Carell had to do with Foxcatcher.
Yep.
Even though he wanted to look more like the actual person rather than, disguising himself. It doesn't look like Steve Carell. And
you forget it's Steve Carell.
Yeah. But Jason Bateman's doing very well, so I enjoy it.
I always find it interesting when people star in the thing that they also direct. Like, I don't know how I feel about that, but I mean that's a different subject.
Not like M. Night, the Night Man, who does his cameos in his movies, but
even though, like, now that he's known for his cameos, it kind of takes you out of the movie. I don't know.
Speaking of taking you out of things,
can we talk? Okay.
I'm sure if you have heard any other podcast, this is why I decided that we're going to just do the whole season of Game of Thrones, is because everybody else is doing Game of Thrones right now.
Yep.
And I'm like, we're just going to add to the noise if we do it episode by episode.
But when Ed Sheeran came on, I was like, what? Like, what?
Yeah, I think it took everybody out of the episode. And even though he quit Twitter due to other reasons, and
so he says.
Yeah, and not because of Game of Thrones. I'm pretty sure that's why he quit Twitter.
But anyway, For those fans,
if you're popular enough to get a cameo on your favorite show, you probably shouldn't do it.
But we were just saying, okay, so we were saying, oh, sorry, we will continue on with talking about the show, but can we just, like, finish this real quick? So, okay, like, look at, like, The Hobbit with Stephen Colbert. He was in there so fast. Like, most people didn't even realize he was there. Other people who, like, knew it was coming, like, or like, oh, yeah, there's Stephen, and then he was gone, and the movie continued. Like, that's not nearly as distracting as, like, a whole freaking scene. And not only is he in the scene, he's, like, one of the main characters in the scene. Like, that's why it was so distracting. But anyway, we should probably move on and talk about the Ozarks.
Rather than the first episode of Game of Thrones.
Yes.
So, I think that the way that this series is started, I think really kind of gets down to the crux of the entire matter. Right now, like I said, I could be wrong about the whole theme, but I think the theme is kind of centered around money, which I think is a really, really interesting kind of take on this. Whereas Breaking Bad was kind of focusing on the science of badness, as it were.
Well,
the chemistry of making drugs.
Well, but it was also, Breaking Bad was more focused on, like, the healthcare system, which is also kind of tied in with money. But this is more money itself, is what it's focused on.
It's on economy. It's on the economy of the criminal, of the criminal enterprise. And I really think that this is really kind of flying in the face of that phrase of "he who has the money makes the rules," which, whether you believe it or not, I really feel that that's the way that our society has gone. Is that those who are in power, and primarily those who have money, can gain that power, and therefore they can make the rules. Which is why I really consider myself to be middle of the road. I do align myself a little bit more with Democrats, and I know that's probably going to be a very controversial thing that I say.
What?
But I really find myself to be middle of the road. I am a fiscal conservative, and I do believe in some of the moral, sociological decisions of the Democratic Party. Whereas right now, I feel like both parties are in disarray because, I feel like money is controlling.
Let money talk.
Exactly, that money is controlling the parties. That both sides are being drawn by this thing, and this is what we see in the show going on, is that every time the money gets involved, that it kind of tears little bits and pieces off of Marty. And I think that Marty essentially was a good man. I mean, you can see it in they kind of trick you into believing him to be a protagonist, and then trick you into believing that he's an antagonist in the first episode alone.
Yeah.
And then he turns out to be good. He's somewhat a good man.
Well, I think part of the reason why we think him as a good man is he really tries not to harm people as much as he possibly can. Like, he would prefer not. But however, at this point, I don't know if we're going to get into the series like later on, but at this point of where we watched it, we don't know why he got involved in money laundering in the first place. Like, it probably has something to do with Bruce, his old business partner, who is now Sludge. But we don't know. I think once we find out why he did, maybe that'll solidify my feelings toward him, because I don't know if he's a good guy or bad guy quite yet.
Well, he seems to be a good guy. He seems to genuinely want the good for everyone around him, except for those who do him wrong. The drug cartel is a completely different matter, but and I think that in him, like most children do, that most children kind of view their parents as divine, as godlike. And I don't know if you ever had that moment where you realized, maybe it was as a teenager, that your parents weren't gods, that they really were human beings too, that they were flawed human beings. I mean, that doesn't say anything bad about your parents. It's just they're human beings. But I think that throughout this series, I think that that's what the way that the kids are going, is that the kids are searching for this new for a new God, for a new moral system. That the moral system that their parents have instilled in them is brought into question because they don't see their parents as trustworthy anymore. And I think that's kind of doing what this is going on the same with the parents, is that both parents have lost this sense of morality, have lost this sense of what is good because of the situation that they're in. They're basically fighting for their lives at this point in time. They have to launder money to fight for their lives.
Well, they believe they have to launder the money, but we'll get to that later.
So I think that they're all searching for their own moral system, their own kind of compass. And this is the funny thing about where it's gone in episode 5 and then in episode 6. I think this kind of really got us to the point of, okay, yes, we can do a podcast on the series, is when they realize where the IRS will not touch them. A business that the IRS will not look into is the church.
Yep.
Which, incredibly, this kind of overlaps with my area of expertise. Is that it's very true. I mean, I've seen so many times that the church and money, it's a horrible system.
It is,
and especially within the system that it's at, that it very much applies the same rule to the church, is that he who has the gold makes the rules. That it's those who give more to the church that have more say in the church than anybody else. Even the lowest congregation member.
Yeah.
If they only give like a few cents, their word does not matter in most churches.
Even
and I'm
if
not
it's
saying
a
this
good
is
word,
across the board. I'm not saying that this is every church.
I want to say it's almost everyone.
But
that's my sense.
I've seen it more times than I have not seen it.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately this is what draws people away from the church, and not just from the church, but from our own moral code, is because there's this phrase that is used for people who play the lottery. People call it the I can't remember what it's called. I think it's the dumb tax. Is that you'll never win the lottery. That you're just basically paying into the system, and it's just a tax on the dumb kind of thing. Is that those people who don't know any better, that they're the ones that are putting this money into the system. Whereas I think so many people see that with the church as well, is that that this is just a crutch, and you're pouring in your money into the system, that it's not going to do anything good with your money anyway. It's just going to support the crumbling infrastructure that it is.
We're going to go towards give the pastor a new jet so he can fly across the country.
Yeah. We're not going to bring up Creflo Dollar, but...
but we just did.
But we just did. I mean, there is so often that you see this happening that, it's kind of that health and wealth gospel that it's not the gospel. There's this beautiful interview with William Barber I talked about a few weeks ago, that he talked about that. It's that the gospel has been perverted from this, that God loves you no matter what, to, if you follow God, God's going to give you good things.
God will make you healthy and make you wealthy and provide for your family only if you believe in him enough.
Exactly. And that's why people have been scared into tithing. That's why people have been scared into doing these things, because they feel like they're paying for their immortal afterlife.
Heck, it's been happening for thousands of years. Look at
indulgences. That's why Martin Luther, kind of tore away from the Catholic Church.
Yep.
And yet we're doing the exact same thing in Protestant churches and Catholic churches now. Is that, I mean, even Orthodox churches, that's kind of what we're doing, is we're taxing these people because they have this fear for their mortal afterlife. And I really feel like if you don't understand why you're tithing, you shouldn't be tithing.
Yep. Well, I feel like people forget too that, I don't know. I feel like one of the reasons why people do tithe is because they do feel like they're making a difference. And I feel like that's how some people start giving their money to the church, is they feel like this $2 that I can afford to give to the church is actually going to help, do some good.
Yeah.
And, not going to lie, we, again, have been to some churches where that is the case. They do have great programs, and they actually are helping the neighborhood. But what I want you to do the next time that you give money to whatever church is look around. Are they spending their money on frivolous things? Are they spending their money on a rock wall? Like, what is a rock wall going to do to the community? Sure, they're going to say, oh, well, we put it in here, to pull people towards the church, to help build it. But, okay, that's great. But once they're in here, what is your plan?
Well, we'll get
are
to
you
that
going to
in
help them?
a few minutes after we've
I
said a
can
controversial warning. So
sorry, I can go into a tangent. I'm already going into a tangent, but sorry.
So my point is that I think that the theme of this show is very much really having people take a look at that phrase, is that he who has the money makes the rules. And especially with Mexican drug cartel being kind of behind this whole thing, they are one of the big antagonists that people are afraid of nowadays. I mean, look at Mexico. Yes, Mexico has a problem with drug cartels, but it doesn't mean that all Mexicans are part of that.
Yes, you are. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, everybody. I'm kidding.
As that, we are, that it is part of that problem, but it's also because the number one consumers of those drugs.
We're Americans.
Exactly.
It's us.
I mean, we can even go into the fact that, the Ark or museum or whatever it is, that huge ark that was built in the whole controversy with the rainbow, but I'm not going to bring that up, even though I already have. But is the fact that he dodged his taxes by buying his own land for $10. That should tell you right there that this is a whole system that I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit after I've given a controversial warning, because I do have major opinions on this, obviously. But I think that this is what this show is really doing, is really, kind of talking about money and how we've measured our life with money. Mm-hmm. And he talks about that in the very first episode, his first big opening monologue. That's what he's talking about. And so I think that essentially I'm really excited to see where it goes with this. Mm-hmm.
So my question is, how far would you go? How far would you go to help protect, or to help better, or to help your family survive? Essentially. And we see a lot of characters in the Ozarks do that. Of course, the main, is Marty. What does he do? In the first episodes, he gets into that predicament. All of his business partners are now dead and in sludge. And he basically, makes up a story oh yeah, this is the plan all along. I was going to come to you and yeah, let's do this. It's a good business opportunity, which he clearly was just, talking out his butt. He really had no plan at all. Which I have to give him credit for that. I mean, not everybody can just come up with stuff like that on the fly.
Yeah.
But he comes home, and, with what happened with his wife, she ends up finding out what's going on. She wasn't aware of the situation, but then he eventually tells her, and several times throughout the series, not several, one or two times, he's given the opportunity, or the thought has come across his mind, maybe you should go into witness protection. Why don't you just stop what you're doing, hand this over to the feds, go into the witness protection. But he doesn't. Me, I would jump on that opportunity. I'd be yep, I'm getting out of here, and I'm going to go into witness protection, give me false names. I'm a good actress. I'm sure I can make it out there, but he's not convinced. He's convinced somehow.
Well, I'm thinking that especially after the one FBI agent told him that Bruce was an informant, that he's no, you couldn't protect Bruce. What makes you think that I'm going to trust you now to protect my family after what happened?
Yeah.
You couldn't protect Bruce.
But Bruce put himself into the situation by stealing the money.
Oh, I know.
That had nothing to do with the FBI. That had everything to do with Bruce being stupid.
Yeah, it had everything to do with that, but it's also, that point where, how far did his morality go? Like, yes, he was informing for the FBI, but he was also skimming. Mm-hmm. Is that the FBI would have taken him down for that too?
I think maybe the reason why Bruce was an informant with the FBI is that he thought that the FBI could protect him. But instead of going into witness protection, like, he thought that he could be a double agent and, have the best of both worlds.
And still skim?
Yes, exactly.
Well, and I think this is why Marty is struggling with that. I think that Marty doesn't want to do that because he knows what the cartel is capable of. Mm-hmm. That they will find him.
Yep.
And his family. And they will kill all of them.
Yep. And not just... Well, and who knows, like, his extended family, too. Like the eyeballs that we see, we don't know whose eyeballs they are. For all we know, it's a family member of his that they just don't know something has happened to yet.
Yeah. Or they could be Marty's. Or Bruce's, I mean.
So you think that they, like, plucked his eyeballs out first? And
before they put him in the acid?
It's like, I have an idea.
By the way, there are tons of nods to Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah.
In the series so far.
Yep.
I don't know if they were planned or not, but they're definitely there.
Oh, I think so too. And then we come up with Ruth, who, can I just say, I'm impressed. This is one of the... I don't know if there's any other characters like her out there. If there is, please tell me, like, where I can find them. Like, she's a young woman. She's 19. Like, she... could have just graduated from high school. Mm-hmm. She's 19. She's already essentially, like, the leader of her family, like, telling everybody what to do. Part of it, of course, has to do with her dad, because her uncles are afraid of her dad. But still, she's smart. Like, she knows, like, hey, we can't just take this money and just spend it. Like, no, that's stupid. Like, we're just going to stay in the same place that we are if we spend the money. Like, we need to be wise about this. We need to think about the purchases, about the long term of how things are gonna be. So she really is doing this for her family. Really. Mm-hmm. Like, she wants the best for them, even though she's, unfortunately, with her family history, like, this is the only way that she thinks that she can provide for her family.
Yeah. And
I think part of it is because her family does have such a bad name that it's hard for her, like, to make an honest living.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why she came to Marty for a job. Mm-hmm. Even though, yes, she was still planning on killing him and taking the money, that there's still a part of her that wants to be legitimate. Mm-hmm. Is that I think that she wants to... There's that part when you see her after taking over the club, that that she's good at this, that she can be a manager, that she can mm-hmm. be legitimate, and that the pressures from her family are forcing her to still go on with the plan of killing him and taking the rest of the money, mm-hmm. is finding that easy way out.
Yeah.
Which, there is no easy way out.
No, at this point in time, the best thing for her to do, like, the way that she can ride this out the longest is by keeping Marty alive. Like, if she kills him, like, there's no guarantee that she's not going to be arrested and thrown into jail.
Yep.
For premeditated murder. So, but her family doesn't, I don't know, it's hard for them to, I guess, see the consequences of those actions. And I've seen that before. There are people out there who, like, are only worried about the here and now, are only worried about, next week versus, 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that, like, through the course of my life has realized that I can't think about that. I have to, when I'm making decisions, also be thinking about the future. Especially, like, in our financial aspects. Like, I'm constantly thinking about, okay, well, if I do this, like, like one of the reasons why we're so like we don't want to have a lot of credit card debt is because I have seen what credit card debt can do to people, 5 years from now.
Well, as somebody in the show, I think it was in this show, right, where they said that 50% of Americans are, have mounting credit card debt.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is not, like I said, this is very much about the economy.
Yep.
And so that it's very true. And it's so easy to do that, to rely on your credit cards when you have nothing else. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why we're trying to be completely honest here. Is that we're trying to dig ourselves out of a hole that we got ourselves in from me being unemployed for a while. But
I do have to say that we're not in as big of a hole as it could have been. We could have relied a lot more on our cards. But because that you and I think about the future, we have realized where it was going, and we try to put a stop to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the last person I want to talk about who has been trying to do well for his family or think about his family and help them to survive has been Jonah. Jonah has kind of been in the background of everything. His parents aren't worried about him as much as Charlotte because, of course, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So, they're focused more on her. And, him, he kind of is left at home a lot. He is, has the ability to rummage through things. His family is against guns, which I think is kind of funny, seeing that his, dad is working for a drug cartel. But anyway, so, of course, when he has the opportunity to come in contact with them, with Buddy, Buddy takes him out shooting, he sees an opportunity here, hey, this guy has guns. If I take one, he's not going to notice, and I can stash it away, and it'll be here for when my family needs it. And his family thinks, of course, that he is, going crazy. It turns out that his Wendy's brother, may have had something going on to where, he was obsessed with, dead animals, and, he did something bad, because they talk about, well, I don't want him to become, a brother. So there's something in the family history that, makes them concerned. But honestly, he's just a curious kid, and, he's going about it the way a 13-year-old, would only be able to think about going about it, Well,
I also find it odd that there's that in there when her character in Love Actually has a brother that is in a mental institution.
Oh, yeah, good point. So that is kind of funny. I wonder if they did that on purpose. But anyway, so I am kind of worried for Jonah because he is young. I have a feeling that because being young, he's impulsive.
Well, he's also developing an anxiety disorder. This is how it begins. It's some traumatic event that, really pushes somebody over the edge to kind of worry obsessively.
Yeah. And he is worrying obsessively. He Googles who Del Rio is. He finds a video of them killing his dad's coworkers, and he's like,
not the coworkers, it's other people in Mexico.
Oh, I thought it was coworkers.
No, it was, he's like, these are dad's coworkers, as saying, in kind of an ironic sense. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay.
This is who dad's working with.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. But anyway, he's clearly worried about it. He sees, oh my gosh, look at the things that they're doing. And that could happen to us. So he's trying his best as a 13-year-old boy to try to be prepared for something like that. But
and I think that he is trying to divine his own moral system here. Mm-hmm. And yes, I purposely put in that play in words there, is that, he's trying to find a new God, a new moral system to wrap his head around. And, kind of Buddy's filling in a little bit in that. And because Buddy's so close to death, and he's got this thing with buzzards and trying to, vultures, to kind of understand vultures a little bit, because they're birds of prey, carrion birds are actually, but, that they're vicious animals. I mean, this imagery is kind of throughout the show, and I think this has a lot to do with the economy. Essentially, is a lot of what the imagery is brought up, like the angel investor, about these people doing these things.
There's a lot of death imagery.
There's a lot of death imagery, and it has to do with the economy, and it's because of businesses failing. And this is what's happening in the economy, is we have a lot of these small businesses that are failing, and these are the ones that politicians harp on all the time, but they're not out to actually help these small businesses. They're actually out to help the big ones that have all of the money, that they're giving their money to these politicians for them to be reelected.
Yep.
And anyway, that's probably the most controversial thing that I'm saying in that part. So,
well, and I used to actually work for a business who's actually bought out by one of those angel investors, and I'm doing this in air quotes because I don't know if a lot of you listeners are aware of these kinds of companies. Most of the time, there's like certain, they call themselves like investment groups, but really what they do is they buy businesses basically for the sole purpose of liquidating them and getting as much money as they possibly can. And luckily, I actually got out of it before, like I actually left and moved before this was happening. I heard it was happening though, because my upper management was like talking about how we were being bought out, but it's okay. And there was a lot of store closures, which is usually what they do, because they try to keep only like a few open.
Yep. At
the very end of everything. So then that way they can say, oh look, this business is still going. Like they're still open, but really, like a lot of people lost their jobs because of it. Like they come in under the guise of, we're going to protect you, we're going to make sure that everything like is going to be fine, and it's not.
Well, I think the same thing happened to Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Blockbuster really was. They had a few stores open even after Blockbuster declared bankruptcy, but I think it's because of that. An investor came in, bought up Blockbuster, then started selling off the stores.
Yep.
And the ones that they couldn't sell right away are the ones that stayed open until they, completely closed. Which is funny because we're talking about a Netflix series, and Netflix were the ones that kind of
killed
Blockbuster. But it's because Netflix's business model was where society was going.
Yeah.
And so, it was a good thing for them. So where do we go from here? And remember, we're only 6 episodes into the series, so
we're going to go from here. We're going to go complete the series.
Yeah, exactly. But I think there's a lot of absurdism in this entire series so far. We did talk about this a bit in our episode on The Good Place, on kind of the absurdism model, and how kind of money in itself is an absurd concept.
Yep.
That measuring your life by money is an absurd context, and that's Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the founders of absurdism, along with
other guy,
Albert Camus. So he was also the other founder of absurdism. Mm-hmm. And so we have their thoughts on the matter, and a lot of it has to do with commerce, with commerce being just kind of this thing that, it's not real. It doesn't make sense. It's absurd that we work to get more money, and we use that money to get more stuff, but then we need more money to get more stuff, so we have to go back to work to get more money to get more stuff. And it's all just kind of absurd.
And part of the absurd thing is the only reason why money has value is because money, like paper money, is tied with gold and silver. The only reason why gold and silver are like thought of as being valuable is because we as humans decided it was valuable. We could have done that with anything. We could have done that with trees, for goodness sake.
Yep.
It's a rock in the ground that happens to be shiny, and we decided that this was going to be what we base our commerce on.
Well, our commerce is now trees, but it's because it's paper.
Oh my goodness. Okay. It's actually a cotton blend.
It is a cotton blend,
which is why you can wash it.
Well, yeah, it's cotton blend with paper. Yeah, so it's both cotton and trees. So, More proof that America was built on cotton. But my U.S. history professor would have loved me for saying that our country was built on cotton.
Now I'm sad because of slavery.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my big controversy warning. This is purely my own opinion. This is not based on absolute fact. If you do have facts to kind of say, oh, here's where you're wrong, then give them to me. Let me know. But this is my own kind of opinion piece here. So a little bit of controversy warning on that. As I already went into this a little bit with church and money, is that I feel like, especially now that many churches are losing membership, like people are fleeing churches, that the Christian church as a whole is almost one of the number one declining religions in the world, that people don't go to church anymore. But the funny thing is, people still believe in God. And, it's kind of that whole thing that's wrapped up in the show is that, they're trying to find their own morality. They're trying to find this new God instead of this God that we've worshipped so long, which is money. And this money in the churches it's been ruling the church, and especially the American church, since the origin of our country. Is that this Western idea of Christianity has become so obsessed with greed that it's changed the message of the gospel from God loves you no matter what, that God wants to be in relationship with you because God loves you, to worship God and God will give you good things, health and wealth and prosperity, and that's just not the way it works. The way that it works, it's about the oppressed. It's about giving love and kindness to everyone, not keeping the church doors open, not keeping these grand cathedrals lit and warm during the winter. It's not about that.
Or rock walls.
Or rock walls. It's about feeding the hungry, about housing the homeless, about caring for those who don't have enough. And in our society, there's more and more and more people who do not have enough. And for some reason, the church keeps turning a blind eye. We're having these ice cream socials. We're having these big, elaborate, fancy dinner parties. For what? To bring people into the church? No, that was not the mission to begin with. The mission to begin with was to go out to the people. Is that Jesus has left the building. And that's why I feel that Jesus wouldn't be going to church nowadays. Well, primarily because he'd be going to synagogue because he was Jewish. But, he'd be out on the street corner. He would be out with, those who are homeless, those who are hungry, and feeding them.
Well, and frankly, Jesus was not a rich man, in terms of, money. In fact, he told all of his disciples to leave their possessions and to follow him.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a strong issue with the prosperity gospel, because Jesus never promised that. Jesus never said, hey, you follow me and I'll make sure that you are just going to be, set for life.
You'll have a $6 million private jet.
Yes, you'll be able to eat all of the Dijon mustard you could ever acquire, all of the green jackets.
Green dresses.
Yes, all of the green dresses.
But not a real green dress, because that's cruel.
Yes. But, so, that's what I have a problem with, is and unfortunately, it's those churches that, promise those, that feed on the people who need the money the most.
Exactly. And,
gosh, you should watch John Oliver's piece on that.
And oh my goodness,
you'll be so mad, but you should watch it if you don't know what we're talking about.
And the economy of the churches, it's a horrible thing. And this is what I was talking about earlier, was that those who give the most money to the church are the ones who make the rules in the church. That we're so afraid of offending those people that we don't end up doing our mission.
Yep.
That it was to begin with. That those people are so afraid of the dirty, the poor, the hungry, the infirm, that the church hasn't done very much of anything for a long time. And I think that's very much why you're seeing these articles coming out now, why the Christian left, as they're calling it, is progressive Christians are scaring politicians now, is because they're deciding, oh, wait, our mission was political to begin with. Mm-hmm. Jesus was political. That, oh my goodness, this is what we've supposed to have been about the entire time. Yeah. Sorry, I could go on about this for hours, and I'm going to cut this short because we're running out of time.
Yes, but if you want to continue this conversation, by all means, email us. You can send us in a voicemail. You can follow our groups on Facebook, which is The Honest Faith on Facebook. And then also we have Miguel has a new group
called Post-Church Christians. That one, whereas Honest Faith has been about my story and about my family story, mm-hmm. about that transition away from the church, Post-Church Christians is about your story. It's a place where you can come and share and be supported for your transition wherever you are. Even if you're still in the church and you want to help the church become what the church was supposed to be, great. Let's support you. Tell us about your story. Tell us about what you find infuriating. Tell us about what you find great about the church. Anyway, you can find us on Facebook at Post Church Christians. You can also find it by going to facebook.com/realfaith, Real Honest Faith, and that one I've tagged it a few times in there, so you can go find it that way.
Yep.
With that being said, also with the phone, which is 720-372-3879, mm-hmm. Give us a call, leave us a voicemail, and we may use your voice on next week's episode because we're going to be continuing to do the Ozark.
Yep.
Or Ozark. It's just called Ozark.
Ozark. Yeah, not Ozarks, which I keep saying. It's just Ozark. And then also, just as a plug into my wonderful husband here, Miguel Covarrubias wrote a book. So if you want to check that out, it's available on Amazon. You could buy it electronically or in actual book form if you choose to do so. If you want to tell them the title.
Yeah, it's called The Boulevard of Broken Dreams, a youth minister's story of being shattered. And surprisingly, there are a lot of books called that. So I didn't know this whole thing about you can't trademark titles. Yep. So that's.
But it's the one about youth minister.
Yeah, it's the one about youth minister. It's got my picture on it and everything.
Yep.
So go buy the book. If you don't like it, then just buy it anyway. You can buy it and just put it on your shelf if that's what you want to do. If you want to buy it and have me sign it. Call your local bookstore and be like, hey, you should get this independent author out here and stock his book.
Yeah,
because that'd be cool. I've never done anything like that. So, yeah, that'd be cool. Anyway, find us on social media, on Twitter, on Tumblr, on Reddit, we're all over
everywhere.
The place. So,
we are everywhere.
Even though I don't use Google Plus anymore. But who does?
I don't even think Google uses Google Plus anymore.
I think the Google employees are required to, but that's a different story. All right, so with all that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.